My name is Lukonga Lindunda, and I'm co-founder and executive director of BongoHive. There are four different entities in BongoHive. The main entity, and we're known for supporting entrepreneurs, and so we run various interventions that support the start and growth of enterprises. But we couple that with providing a physical space. So we have a co-working space called Hive Co-working. We also provide a number of services to our corporates and organizations in helping them innovate in the marketplace. And also we have an early stage fund called, when you go on Twitter and you read a bit about other people's perception about Zambia, you will notice that there's a lot of positive sentiment because of course, the new government. So lots of incentives that are coming through to encourage entrepreneurship in general. But from a regulatory perspective, and for a lot of fintechs that are trying to start businesses on the continent, we are positioning ourselves as a country that is receptive and also has very progressive policies and regulatory frameworks that encourage innovation. So and that's encouraged, we've seen a number of startups that have come to Zambia quite recently, taking advantage of this positive sentiment, but also the very positive environment. So I could say that we have positioned ourselves to attract the very best talent and also the best startups, and also that over the years the progression that we have made as a country has been very positive. So we're open for business and open for many startups to come here. I think things have changed quite significantly. It's common knowledge that we had a new government come into place just in August last year. A lot of changes in terms of the ICT environment and the frameworks and policies. So a lot of revisions that are happening right now to encourage more innovation, to encourage a more robust startup ecosystem. So very, very positive, I could say, from that perspective. If I remember, we received an email from the British High Commissioner that we would be getting a VVIP. So we were not so sure about who that person was until a week before. And we found out it was Prince Harry. Unfortunately, Meghan couldn't make it. But the most important, or at least one of the important benefits of such a visit is that it put a spotlight on the work that we do. But also it allowed a lot of the entrepreneurs that have been through our programs, benefited from our programs, have been supported by us, to meet him directly. And those interactions, I think, always help motivate entrepreneurs and also bring into light a part of our work, which is to reduce the barriers between us and others, and also to be able to bridge those gaps and ensure that entrepreneurs get the kind of support and spotlight that they need, whether from Zambian entrepreneurs, Zambian business people, but also global icons as well, because we believe that an ecosystem needs all this kind of support in order to thrive. Yeah. So we've been around for 10 years. We're going into our 11th year. And you can imagine I could take a whole day to talk about the challenges. But I think it's important to emphasize that in comparison with other ecosystems, right? So relatively nascent ecosystems. So we have a long way to go. We could accelerate that, but we have a long way to go in ensuring that we have a decent pipeline of startups that can compete at a global stage. And so there are various interventions to be able to do that. So I think that generally, from a broader perspective, ensuring that we are aligned from the very top levels, right? You have a president who's willing to push this kind of agenda. You have the ministries. You have a corporate environment where corporates are very interested in innovation, are willing to put money in it, and also from an academic perspective, that academia understands the role of churning out people who have the right talent. These potentially could start startups, could start working for startups. But I think a more cohesive environment, a more collaborative environment is what over the past 10 years we've been working on. And having this ecosystem view has helped us to achieve so much and break down these barriers. But I think that the challenges still remain, how we ensure that startups get the right kind of funding, right? So funding is a big issue, and it's great, that our Nigerian and Kenyan brothers can get that kind of funding in their startups, and we're beginning to see that rolling over into Zambian startups and startups across the continent. So I think the funding issue needs to be solved for, and is being solved, and there's so much traction. Talent, definitely an issue across the continent, and something we need to continue to work on, because our ability to be able to attract talent and build that local pipeline is important to ensure that our startups can truly scale and grow beyond Zambia and create solutions, I think, that change the world, quite significantly. I think the big change has been that startups are no longer as insular as they used to be. You start a business in Lusaka and you think Lusaka is your only market, right? But now, the conversations around how we grow a startup beyond Lusaka, beyond Zambia, into the region and on the continent, it's helpful, I guess, when you see other startups scaling that fast. It encourages a lot more entrepreneurs locally to think big. So I think the big change has been, of course, how big people think, right? And that's important. But also, what you have, recently we had the first Zambian startup that got into Y Combinator. So you're now beginning to see that even from an external perspective, that we have established investors and also accelerators that are able to get into the local market and invest, and that's a big shift over the years, where you had more traditional businesses getting funded, and now you're getting startups getting funded. And also, I like to end this with one interesting example where you have also entrepreneurs that start in Zambia, fail in Zambia, but then move to another country, start a business there, and then they scale. So that kind of learning and ability to cross-pollinate ideas and transplant ideas into other markets is a thing we've noticed now, and it's great that we can get entrepreneurs moving their mindset and also geographically, right? Not from just working within Lusaka and starting businesses here, but moving to other countries and also starting businesses there. So Union 54 is one startup that got into Y Combinator I think last year, and they recently got, I think, 3 million from led by Tiger Global investment. Yes. Well, I have to be optimistic, but I'm also a realistic person. I think that we need such examples, and they open doors and motivate other startups to be able to do the same thing. Well, I think we have to address this from different perspectives. We know that the crypto blockchain space requires a certain level of oversight, right? And I'm being very careful about those words. So our interactions with regulators, for example, have been very key. We've had decent engagements with them. They've opened the space and been very clear about the regulatory environment, and all the boundaries, and that's important. When you have something or a regulator that's predictable, that means your boundaries, and therefore the less ignorance, the better for you as a startup. So I think that from a regulatory perspective, the kind of engagements we have had have been positive, and that shows that the market is open to experimenting, to understanding, and if they don't know, they can say they don't know, and in future they will know. So that's really important. I think from a knowledge or culture or talent or capacity perspective, I think we need more initiatives like WABA and what they're doing to build that capacity. The technology definitely exists, it's there, lots of use cases, but you also need to get more people in that space that understand how to leverage the technology. And then from a perspective of just the market as well and openness, we've had a few examples here of people, of startups using the tech, and so we need more of them, and we need to create more programs that encourage startups to use the technology, to experiment, to scale their solutions using the technology. So I think from various perspectives, lots of positives and lots of progress. And I like to say, this is the kind of space that you want to move with others, and not something that you just dream in your bedroom and think that you can change the world. I think we have a much more positive, cohesive ecosystem now, and working with different players, And that's important for us to push this kind of agenda going forward. So regulators want to be able to know, what they're getting themselves into. So I think the kind of interactions that we've had with them are, even when they don't know, they want to know the process that helps them to know, whether they're doing studies, or whether they are creating or being involved in accelerators, or whether they are having open forums or being on webinars. But it's a lot about openness and willingness to experiment, to try within, of course, the confines of regulation and all. But the interactions are always about how do we still leverage on the technology itself, and what kind of use cases would make sense for us. And I think that's why I always say the regulatory environment here is much more positive, because they're not coming out to the public and saying don't do anything, but it's because we don't know, how do we get to know this stuff, and how can we work together to make sure that we also look at the positives, and also account or put ourselves in a position where we know the risks that are involved, and when we put them together, find ways in which we can still move forward and make progress. I think it's important that to lead these kinds of initiatives, that you partner with people who know the stuff, right? And it's important that for us to always be clear that we won't be the experts in everything. I think we are great facilitators. We assist the partnerships. We assist people come together. But I'm not going to go out there and say I'm a blockchain expert, right? And that's important. And so partnering with UABA is us ensuring that there's the right technical expertise involved in making sure that this works. So their experience in building communities, in building capacity, in building partnerships as well. I think for partnerships, and I think at global scale, that's important for us to be able to unlock the opportunity in the blockchain crypto space. And that's why our partnership with them is about them coming in and realizing there is a local community of innovation or entrepreneurship. How do they tap in? How do we leverage on their expertise? And how do we make sure that the community grows, leveraging on both our expertise and networks? Look, I'll be honest that we're positioning ourselves to be what you would term as the Estonia or the Delaware or the Singapore of Africa. You can combine all of them, right? But it's important for anyone out there who's trying to start a startup and looking at where they can start it from and base their operations. And Zambia is positioning itself to be that place. And so in the next 5-10 years, you will see a lot more, not just innovation, but startups starting here and growing into the rest of the continent and the world, and that's important to consider. Yeah, why not? And even more, right? I think there's real opportunity to innovate on the continent, and we've seen recently, from a regulatory perspective, from a cultural perspective, from a geopolitical perspective, I think you need a certain level of predictability and stability, and Zambia provides that. Yeah, so our website is www.bongohive.co.zm, and you can access all our services and read all about our work on our website. And also, if you just search for BongoHive on all the major social media platforms, you will access everything we do. So Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and YouTube as well. Yeah.